We had some technical difficulties on that last video, so we're going to just start over a little bit and backtrack. Sorry if you've heard this before, but we were talking about the emotional impact on Civil War veterans that had come home, some of them without limbs, some of them blind, some of them, very badly injured, and some of them with injuries that you can't see, when there was post-traumatic stress disorder before there was a name for it. So you were discussing about a young man out of Smethport, and it was Port Allegheny.
Right.
And he had come home and just started having nightmares and acting oddly, and then, go ahead, what were you saying?
And then he eventually committed suicide. Right. Another thing that contributed to the stress was sometimes the medicine that they dispensed to the soldiers actually had mercury in it.
Oh my.
And the mercury, after time eats away your brain. And
right.
then that also caused some of the men to actually just to lose it.
Right. And another thing to be said, too, for dosages of medicine, that they really didn't understand addiction at that time. And morphine was being used. Also opiates like opium were being used during that period. And there was even a book on it called The Opium Eaters.
That's true.
Right. I actually have that book.
Oh.
Yeah. Originally from that time period. So what we're going to talk about right now is the historical fiction that you have been writing. When was your first book published?
In 2002.
2002. What really set your mind racing, your imagination going, I think this is something I want to do?
Well, actually, I always loved to read historical fiction books when I was a kid.
Right.
And so when once I retired from teaching, I wanted to write a historical fiction book that kids today might like. And so I thought, why not about the Bucktails, being there's a lot of good information about the Bucktails available. And also, I had gone to Washington, D.C. on a school trip back in the 60s, and it was the 100th anniversary of the Civil War at that time. And so we were asked to march down Pennsylvania Avenue with kids from all over the country dressed like the Bucktails. We had little Civil War kepi caps with a coontail in them.
Well, that's funny because a lot of our, our members of I Grew Up in Bradford, PA, were part of that trip. And so if you were on that trip with Bill and maybe didn't know it, this is a great time for you to post under this video of what your experience was with that march.
It was awesome, too. And then on the way back, we stopped at Gettysburg, and they showed us the Bucktail Monument and told us, all the heroics of the regiment during that battle.
Right. Well, I think it's really exciting that we have you in this area and, just the richness of having somebody who really understands what happened during that time. I'm excited just to be here and talk to you. Mostly very excited about the fact that Bill is going to read for us an excerpt out of his book, Hayfoot, Strawfoot, the Bucktail Recruits. When was this particular book published?
This was the first book in our 7-novel series, and
right.
it came out in 2002.
Okay. Are you going to read for us?
Oh, sure.
Okay, great. That'll be terrific.
And this is part of the Battle of Drainesville, the first battle the Bucktails participated in, and also the first battle that the Union won over the rebels, and it took place in Northern Virginia. When the rebels began to fall back, Lieutenant Colonel Kane leaped to his feet and shouted, "We got 'em on a run, men! Charge! Charge!" The words were no sooner bellowed than a rebel ball smashed through Kane's face and down through the roof of his mouth. The same volley knocked down a half a dozen Bucktails, groaning to the earth. The mini-balls were so thick around them, they sounded like a swarm of disturbed hornets. Kane stumbled only for a moment. Yanking a handkerchief from his pocket, he staunched a flow of blood, raised his sword, and leaped forward with his men roaring at his heels. The rebels were now in panicked retreat, barely saving a field cannon from capture as the Bucktails swept down on them. Their dead and wounded littered the ground behind them when they fled. And again, this shows the bravery of Colonel Kane. He gets shot through the face, doesn't fall down, he just